many people discovering the flat earth have turned back to religion. But a lot of people are not with the model that I have found personally for me to be the one that works, which is the dome/firmament. I don't want to push that view on anybody who's within the flat earth community. Everyone makes up their own mind and perhaps can change their mind as new information is presented. But with that, a lot of people want the endless plane model to be more further explored, but that doesn't really jibe with the biblical model. A lot of people think that the dome model is very limiting, and it's a cake plate that I've heard said put over the earth, keeping us enclosed as if we are a science experiment. I don't see it really that way. I kind of see it as being that we're being maybe protected and watched. What's your take on that, Rob?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard the various arguments. It's kind of interesting to see in Christianity, unfortunately, there's a lot of infighting because everybody gets dogmatic about a certain, the pre-trib rapture, it's post-trib rapture, it's this, it's that, and you're a heretic if you don't believe the way I do, So unfortunately, Christianity has been known for that all too well. But I'm seeing sort of the same types of things happening in the so-called flat earth community, where you've got the infinite plane people, you got the concave people, you got it's the roulette model people, versus the dome people. Everybody's sort of got their own take on it. And unfortunately, they're not calling everybody a heretic and stuff like they do in Christianity. They're just saying, you're a shill, you must be part of the, a psyop, whatever. But they're doing the same thing. And I'm saying, guys, stop it. Just stop. All right. Let's come together like rational human beings and talk this stuff out, because I don't believe any of us have it all figured out. We don't have it 100%. My take on it is, of course, I'm coming at it from the biblical worldview. In no uncertain terms, describes a firmament over us, that it is enclosed, and it's not just the biblical worldview. It is the worldview of the ancient population of the world. They all had some, the details varied a little bit, but they had the same concept of what the Bible calls the firmament, and it calls it the firmament because it's firm. It is this thing that's over us. Like I showed you earlier, the Egyptians had the sky goddess Nut that depicted it, but they weren't the only ones. I mean, many ancient cultures had the same concept. This is a page that I created on my site, testingtheglobe.com. If you go to the More Resources tab and then scroll down to where it says Enoch's Dome World, and I'm a visual person, so I need to depict it so I can kind of wrap my head around it. So I did a video on it. Of course, we've talked about this one already, this diagram here. This is what the ancient world believed is basically the snow globe. So what I tried to do is take the various descriptions that we see in the ancient text and create a 3D model that fits as many of the descriptions that I could find. And this is what I came up with. Now, this is it completely enclosed. I scroll down here and do a cutaway of it. So basically, Genesis says a firmament shows up that separates waters above from waters below. So effectively, what you end up with is a bathysphere, basically, a pocket of air inside a metallic dome, separating water above from water beneath. And inside that pocket, a circle was carved or inscribed on the face of the deep, and that becomes your circular flat Earth, basically inside the dome, within which on day 4 the sun and moon and stars were placed. But there are other scriptures that talk about the storehouses of the deep. So I've got these kind of compartments here. Like I just envision it like as an enclosed system, and this gold plate on top is the floor of the throne room of God, because the scripture says that his throne is on the circle of heaven. You got the circle of earth, but then you have the circle of heaven. He walks on the circle of heaven. So I depicted a circular floor basically here, and it says that the earth is his footstool. Now we consider, biblically speaking, the word earth comes from the Hebrew word eretz in Hebrew, which just means land. But even in the globe model, we call all of this earth. We don't just call the land earth. We call the clouds, the atmosphere, the water, the whole ball earth. So in other words, the whole ball system we call earth. So I thought, well, if I applied that same mentality to this system, then this whole system becomes earth. So it says the earth is his footstool. I've got a little bit of the dome coming up out above the floor. And if you imagine, let's say his throne right here, then this would, I'm taking a literal view, just taking the text and literally trying to conceptualize what it said. What did the ancients believe when they wrote this? What was in their head when they wrote these descriptions? And, I don't know what was in their head, but this was what was in my head when I read what they wrote. So I imagine this being the floor with four corners, because you have the four angels on the four corners of the earth system. And the book of Enoch identifies the four angels that are standing there. I think I wrote it in here somewhere, what their names are specifically. Anyway, Enoch names them. So I imagine these are the four corners. This is the circle of heaven. Thrones right here. The top of the dome sticking out is literally his footstool. Then you have the waters above, the waters beneath. The heavens, the windows of heaven were opened, which caused the great flood. Well, if you can imagine the water level being all the way up, and then basically portals opening up and filling up the bathtub, that's what caused the flood. That wouldn't empty all the waters above. It would just put a little bit of the waters above into the bathtub here. So how do you get rid of it? Because there's water beneath. Well, I figured it had to have been siphoned off into the storehouses of the deep. Maybe that's why they're there. So that's why I've got these compartments here, which after the bathtub here was emptied, the water could just go into here because it's not up here anymore. I don't know if I'm describing that as well as it is in my head, but it makes sense in my head. I'm not sure if I'm articulating it well. So anyway, continuing, if I continue to cut that away, we also have descriptions of the earth being set up on pillars. Now, here's the scripture talking about the storehouses of the deep. That's in Psalms 33:7. But we also see in 1 Samuel 2:8, for instance, for the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. So you've got the pillars idea. And I depicted the pillars as having sort of like shock absorbers here. This would make it possible for him to, if he got mad, he could thump it with his foot, shake it up a bit if he wanted to, but it wouldn't shake it, because it says in other places that the earth is not movable. In other words, it won't be moved off of the pillars. It's set on the pillars, and you're not going to knock it off the pillars. You could shake it up, though, if you wanted to. So here's cutting it away a little bit more. You'd see that the general idea right here. And to your point, this does bring God a lot closer. He's not this invisible thing way out in another dimension, somewhere out in the bazillions of galaxies out there that's very impersonal. If this model is true, then this is Christoph in the Truman Show. He's right there looking down on us, and we look like grasshoppers to him, according to the book of Isaiah, as he looks down on the circle of the earth. This makes it very intimate, very safe also. He's got it all under control. As the song says, he's got the whole world in his hands, right? There's nothing in here that's going to hurt us, Nibiru and all that stuff. And what was interesting is after I created this, somebody sent me a picture of a footstool, and I freaked because the picture they sent me looks very close to the picture I had already created. And quoting the scripture, Isaiah 66:1, where it says that the earth is my footstool. It even has these ridges right here carved into the woodwork of the footstool, which look almost identical to the design that I came up with, just kind of off the top of my head. So is that the way it really is? I don't know. I'm just trying to conceptualize what the ancient texts say. But when I had a conversation on Facebook with Matt Boylan, he's one of the infinite plane guys. He believes that basically like an egg crate, you've got all these circles where there's these worlds, and if we go past the outer rim of Antarctica and keep going, then we'll find another circle world out there, and it just keeps going on and on. And his argument against this was, well, you have a very small God if that's the case. If this is all there is, well, you have a small God. And I said, well, what if this isn't all? This is all we're told about, but what if there's another one of these right next to us, or over here? I mean, what if there's an infinite plane of these boxes? And the reason I would even suggest that might be possible is because Jesus made an interesting statement in John chapter 14. He said, in my Father's house are many mansions. Well, the Greek word just simply means dwelling places. So what if this is just the floor in one room of the Father's house, wherein there are many dwelling places? There could be lots of these out there, but apparently, whatever the case may be, they're not for us to know about. if they are there, but they could be being prepared for us, because we also see in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, but it is written, eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. Who knows what's out there? I'm thinking this is a really impressive deal. If this is the way it really is, that's a pretty amazing, barring all the damage that we've done to this place, you have to admit, if you've done any traveling and seen the world, it's a beautiful place, aside from what man has done to it. What if there are lots of these beautiful places being prepared? All of a sudden, this is not just a place of protection, but it's a beautiful terrarium that a loving God created for his creation that he wants to have fellowship with. I mean, I think that's just amazing, personally.
The whole idea of what you've just said has really filled me with happiness, actually, because the dome firmament theory that I find resonates with me, and the way other people feel that there is a sort of endless plane, and those would be individually domed as well. So pretty much everybody can have the belief that they feel in their heart resonates with them the most. So this should end all the fighting in the flat earth community about the dome or the endless plane, just with what you said right there, Rob.
I hope so. The only problem with this would be, for somebody like Matt, he believes, we need to book a trip to Antarctica and an expedition and just start walking, or riding, snowmobiles, or getting vehicles and keep going, because he believes you're gonna eventually reach the other world. The problem with the dome world is, no, you're going to reach the edge of the Truman Show. Maybe you could look through it and see to another world over the other way. Who knows if that's true? I mean, I don't know, but if the enclosed model is true, then there's no contact with the other worlds. I mean, that's not going to happen. But this is making me think about the whole CERN deal, as well as the space program. And when you read about NASA thinking about, hey, let's get rid of the Van Allen belts, which is frightening, because they acknowledge the Van Allen belts, assuming they are what we are told they are, that they are there for our protection. And yet they're saying, yeah, they're kind of a nuisance. They're making it very problematic for us to get through it. So let's just get rid of it. That's not going to be a good thing. Even in the spinning heliocentric globe model, there appears to be this thing designed to keep us in here. But anytime you tell humans you're stuck in a cage, well, we're going to try to get out. And that appears to be, to me, what's going on with the alleged space program. Is if you look at what happened in the 1950s with Antarctica and Admiral Byrd and him going down there and Operation High Jump and then Deep Freeze, and then after Deep Freeze, all of a sudden everybody pulls out and signs the Antarctic Treaty, and then all of a sudden NASA's formed, I think the same year. And then the first thing that the United States and Russia do is start blowing off nuclear bombs in the atmosphere, and they called it Operation Fishbowl. So, I mean, if you're trying to avoid a conspiracy, you're certainly not helping with the timeline events and the names you're calling the operation, and Starfish Prime and all this stuff. It looks to me, if I wanted to put a flat Earth conspiracy hat on, that they found the edge of the dome in Antarctica and they thought, how high does this thing go? They started testing it and probing it with nuclear bombs. And when they realized it's not that high up, they wanted to go touch it, see if we could get up there. And then you have the Apollo program, which allegedly beat the Russians in the space program. But the Russians just gave up? Really? No. If you do the research, you'll see that Russia sent, I think, 36 expeditions down to Antarctica while we were doing the alleged Apollo program. So, it looks very interesting. Like, what are they doing? It has all the appearance of we just found out we're in a cage and we want out. And if we can't get out by force of arms, well, then maybe we'll just try to get out interdimensionally and see if we can rip a hole in this thing, with CERN. That's what it appears. Maybe I've watched too many sci-fi movies. I don't know. But that's man's natural reaction to, I'm in a cage, I want out. Even though this is a very, like Mark Sargent says, this is a beautiful cage. I mean, if I'm in a cage, okay, I can't do anything about it either way. So, but I could enjoy it. I mean, this is a really nice place. We'd stop messing it up.
Enjoying it and respecting whomever built it